Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Marianna from Lexe Fiscal. WoW, Women on Women, which is promoted by Lexe Fiscal for the aim of celebration of women during the month of March 2021. Here, I've got a lovely panel of 6 ladies. Hopefully, they are able to join us all together, but because of the fact that everybody's busy with their work, so we are going to start with some of them, and we're going to introduce to you shortly. The theme is femininity, friend or foe, discussing the roles of health, wealth, and strength for females. The idea about this topic is the fact that we see that women in business think that is so important to be feminine. For others, it is not. So let's see what is the role of femininity for women in business. And we are going to discuss this with Sony, which is the brand of Vanessa, which is the co-founder of Beauty and Wellness brand. Then we got Indre for Lily Advisory. She's a wealth coach. And we got Marla Sagu. She is a business investor. And then hopefully they're going to join us soon, other ladies who are in business. We got a sleepwear brand and fine jewelry and a physiotherapist. So I would like to start then with Vanessa. And the reason why I would like to start with Vanessa, because as I started, I said that we want to discuss the roles of health, wealth, and strength. And for this panel at the moment, we got Vanessa, which is representing a very interesting brand for me to share with you. So Vanessa, I'm leaving with you to introduce yourself. So what is your role? And then starting discovering what is for you femininity. So please carry on.
Sure. So I'll introduce myself again. Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm co-founder of Kisoni, which is a natural and sustainable hair and body brand. And the reason we started Kisoni was 2 observations. First, looking at the rise of plastic waste awareness and seeing that there were lots of options for us to make swaps in our kitchen, but not so much in our bathroom. And we looked around in our bathrooms and we just saw the sea of plastic bottles in there and not really sure what we could recycle, what we could not. And so this notion of 90% of products being recycled in the kitchen, but only 50% in the bathroom really resonated with us. And second was when we started diving into the hair care shelf in particular, pre-COVID, of course, we started working on the brand in 2018. We noticed that there weren't many options available for textured hair. And that for us means wavy, kinky, coily, curly hair textures. So with Kisoni, we are addressing both the sustainability as well as the desire for natural products that enhance the natural beauty of your hair, whatever that hair texture may be. So we worked on the brand for a year. We launched in October 2019 and we had a great start, and then COVID hit and we made some changes as most small brands have done. And that's, we pivoted to e-commerce and online, for example, among other things. And that has been really successful for us. Right now, we are navigating the weeds of Brexit and the impact that that has on our business. So if there isn't one thing, there's always another. That's part of the joy of being an entrepreneur. But to your question, thinking about femininity in our business, this notion of being a female entrepreneur or femininity in general runs deeply through our brand because we are a hair care brand. Our primary consumer is women. We are women founded, and our team is almost exclusively women as well. So thinking about us creating a brand for us and consumed by us, but not necessarily grown by us, is front of our minds. And when I say grown by us, I mean in terms of scaling our business and investors. So I often am sitting in front of investors who are male and interestingly don't have hair. So conveying the emotion of finding a hair care brand that ticks those very important boxes to us, as well as conveying commercial figures, numbers, and the opportunity is something that I personally am balancing right now.
I see. But for example, what do you think? What is your experience in relation to the health? So what is the relationship with the woman with the health, and how would you see instead, for your direct experience, the relationship between men and health? Is there a different approach in your opinion, or we are going to be aligned soon? Or
It's interesting because I think that there is a convergence coming in terms of men and women and how we view certain aspects of self-care or beauty and wellness. And you can see that in the rise of neutral products, for example, and scent profiles for perfumes or makeup. So all of these previously gendered categories are now starting to converge. You can see that in clothing as well. And we're currently exploring this topic in our brand, kind of the notion of self-love across touch points like health. And one of the people who will be discussing that with us is a man. And I think some of the difference in kind of bringing those two paths together is stereotypical notions of men and women, and men are strong and don't talk about their emotions, and women are, this kind of thing. But I think in having these conversations and having more people like Trave, who is leading this conversation as part of our campaign, I think it starts to open more doors and more barriers start to break down. So I'm definitely seeing progress in a more unified direction where that's concerned.
Mm. I have a final question. The way how I would like to conduct this, so I'm leading the main of them, but any of you, for example, after my interpretation, you can ask any question to Vanessa also, because this is the platform I'd like to have the discussion about the topic. Going back to the fact that you said the majority of men, of the investors are men, but why are no women then interested to invest in your business? Are you been approaching women as well to invest in your business?
Yeah, so in terms of how we're looking at it, we are looking at it in terms of who would be interested in our category and also who would be interested in our story. And so when I look at my potential investor list, it's very interesting in that regard. And yes, I am seeking a wide variety of investment, really. It's just when I started the process, it's kind of a process of peeling back the layers of the onion. And yes, at the beginning, the usual suspects or the usual referrals were all men. But that is changing. That is changing too as I go through the process.
And what is your challenge then for now for Brexit? Because you were going to explore international markets. Why you are now thinking that could be a threat in a way for you, Brexit, if you were starting locally, for example?
Yes, well, there's a lot more that we know about the impact of Brexit on small businesses compared to what we knew pre-January 1st. So whilst theoretically it seemed fairly straightforward in terms of us moving our products or selling our products directly to the markets we're already in. So we're already in Italy and France, and we have an e-commerce business throughout Europe. The reality was that there were a number of challenges with taxes and customs, unforeseen difficulties in that regard, which we've now had to work through. And it seemed like many small businesses were caught off guard, and we're now starting to muddle through it together. And in fact, the government has released some new funding specifically for small businesses, grants that you can apply to training or professional advice on how to navigate Brexit and export your products without difficulty.
Yeah, definitely. So last question then, in your opinion, so how femininity is impacting your business? Is it a friend for you or is it a foe?
Ooh, good question.
Mhm.
It is, I would like to say that it is friend, personally. It's interesting because I was having this discussion with a group of female entrepreneurs yesterday. And when I was telling them about my 60-second pitch, how I convey the brand to investors, it is a very masculine pitch. And it isn't quite like me in terms of conveying the emotional side of the brand, which is very, very important for a premium hair care brand. And I acknowledge that, and it is a choice that I am working on balancing. But I would like to say friend, because I think the magic in what we're doing in Kisoni, and in fact in my own personal life and health and wellness life, is embracing the femininity as well. And yeah, it will be an ongoing journey, I think. Ask me again in a month.
I will, I will. So Marla, because you are a business investor, so, and it's interesting what Vanessa said, that majority of the people she has to pitch are, you know, men. So how do you see instead for a business investor, a pitch has to be targeted to the gender in your opinion, or it could be basically trying to see what is the expression, the person that is trying to attract the new investors?
You know what? I actually think there are many. It's a big range of people that you actually pitch to, and regardless of whether they're female or male, you should be pitching to the kind of personality that you're going to be pitching to. Okay, so there are some men who would, for whom the feminine pitch would appeal, and there are others who are pretty much old school and want it male pitch. I think it's very difficult to say it should be this way. It should be pitched to the person you're pitching it to and not the gender. I think the unfortunate thing is that Vanessa's only pitched to men, but even within the men that she's pitched to, she probably finds that there's a really wide variety of personalities and wide variety of expectations and how they interact with both women and men, and the age, experience, and where they've come from, and their backgrounds. All of that plays a real part in that. So I think you cannot say you should have a feminine pitch or a masculine pitch. It just needs to be pitched to the person.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting because eventually you sometimes, the pitch is a little bit rigid. You're trying to achieve a goal. So basically you have, I can't say dry, or because the pitch has actually needs to be in the way how you are. It has to be catchy, has to engage with the other part, which is fine. The point is this: you don't know who you're pitching, so eventually you have your goal and you're trying to be catchy as much as possible. But eventually, in my opinion, you start with engagement, with the eye contact and the way you see, the body language of who's in front of you. That is really the way how you start, I would say, flirting in a way, because eventually that is the pitch, trying to catch the attention of someone else. And so in your opinion, then, in this way, is a woman more catchy in the way she's able to module the way how she's talking and so on, or is more, from a man, a strength that a man has got? What do you think?
I'll go back to it. I think that the words are written. So the actual words don't matter. It's how you modulate and how you pitch your product. So you have how you act out your pitch, if you like. I don't know whether Vanessa agrees that the words don't change, but how you interact changes. So the way I'm talking to you now is perhaps different to the way I would talk to a room full of men, but my words may not change. Does femininity help? I always think femininity helps to a certain extent, because and you know, there's plenty of women who don't have this, but emotional intelligence helps. So how emotionally intelligent you are, whether you're a male or a female, is what helps you. And how you attune yourself to the person you're talking to, that is important. I'm afraid I don't think it makes a difference. I work in a very male dominated industry, as you know. Being taken seriously, now that can change, but once you open your mouth and how you pitch yourself to either one of those parties, that is open. I know just as many women who would be totally put off by me. You know, it just is. And I know just as many men who think, great, you know, here's a woman who's talking in a certain way. But it depends on the kind of man or woman I'm talking to. I still go back to, you have to have emotional intelligence to realize how you're pitching to the other party, and whether, and you still flirt. Yes, you're right. It's a version of flirting, but you know, women appeal to other women in certain ways, and you act a certain way with women, and then with men you act a different way. And yes, you just have to moderate what you're doing to the personality of the person in front of you. And I think for me, what's been really important for me in business is to stop thinking of myself first as a woman when I'm in a business situation. I'm a business person, and everything else comes second.
Yeah.
Well, if I can add my 2 cents on this topic, I actually have, you know, I've been doing a bit of research on this specific topic as I'm doing a few other talks about sort of women and investing. And even though I agree with the fact that, you know, the way you pitch, it depends on the person. However, the statistics speak for themselves. And at the moment, from the latest statistics that I found, there's only about 1% of all venture funding that goes to businesses that are founded by all female teams in the UK. And I think that's absolutely crazy and such a small part. And there is an element of it being way more difficult to get funding when you are an all women-led business for a variety of different reasons. And I do think that sometimes when you're pitching to other women, it can be easier because they're willing perhaps to support your ideas and to support you a lot more. So I think it's not necessarily a matter of how you pitch or, you know, how you approach that. It's basically a sheer fact that at the moment, women-led startups are not getting as much investing as male counterparts. And this, I guess, perhaps the question is, what can we do to change that? Does that mean that we should have more women investors who are willing to help out more women founders?
I'm going to just come back to that one. I think that is not a product of the pitching. That's a product of mentality. So I stand by the fact that you pitch to the person, but the mentality is something that's going to take a while to sort out. And you're right. I think women investors are far more likely to take women seriously because they've been there. They've been there. They've done it. They've gone through the whole path, and they feel far more aligned with women. But what you're talking about is so right. But that is mentality. I don't think that. I don't know whether you feel the same, Vanessa, that it's not about how you pitch in that circumstance. It's just the ideas and the biases that are standing in front of you.
Yes, I think that those statistics that you mentioned are definitely front of mind for me when I pitch. And I think my approach is in part dictated by the expected mentality either conscious or unconscious of the person sitting across from me. And I do agree with that. And I do agree with pitching to the person in front of you. So I don't necessarily say, okay, well, here's a man, so that my pitch is going to be like this. Here's a woman, my pitch will be some other way. Some of the most challenging follow-up questions and due diligence I've experienced have been from female investors. So it's not really that exactly. It's more about thinking about the lived experience in a way of the person in front of me and how I will potentially adjust my pitch, and often adjust my pitch to suit that. Yes.
I think the key word here, as Marla mentioned, is the emotional intelligence. I'm thinking the fact that in the past, especially in the 80s, 90s, when the men, the one that were on the front of the business for the sales, and slightly only in the early 2000s onwards, we started seeing more women on the sales. But still, I think on the sales side, they are the one they are on sales, they are doing great jobs. I see women very strong, are able to sell, but still I don't see many of them that maybe is a reason in European, Marla, why women are not much as men on the sales job.
Are you talking about sales of product or sales of companies? Sorry.
Sales of products or services. So looking after the sales of product or service for a company.
You know, I've worked in retail all my life. I've been involved in some sort of retail, and my best salespeople have been men. Absolutely, hands down, being men, and two of them in particular just shine out to me. I think it depends what industry you're in. It's actually, I think that is a bias. That's a bias that comes from if you're a salesperson and you're a man, you know, you're doing a girly job, and you know, just like, you know, now they're looking at us women and say, oh, you're doing a man's job. And you know, like I said, men's industry, you get them looking at you as if, you know, well done, woman, you know, you've got a man's job. And on the other hand, it's the egos of a man can be really, really good at sales, really good, but admitting to it is something less of a macho-ness. I think it's becoming less. I think it's very generational also. And I think the younger generation are better at exploring what they're really good at rather than what they think, what roles they fit into. And I think you have to look at which strata we're talking about, which generation, what are the different ideas that have come through the generations that makes that possible. You won't get a lot of very much older men wanting to be salespeople, or even if they're great salespeople, unless they're car salespeople, they you know, they don't want to admit to being great salespeople, and they're selling products for their company, so they're the best salesman of the generation. But if you're talking about retail sales or face front, sitting there, you know, looking at customers and selling them a product, I think they feel that they're less of men. And I may be completely wrong. I'm willing to put up my hands up and say, you know, you're way off the mark. That's just my opinion.
Well, I agree with you about the fact that there is the ego factor for the men, sometimes so stronger than the women one. But I think it's also the relationship with the finance. So here there is the expert, Indre, which is the one that is working a lot with women, looking after them, trying to, from an educational point of view, to having a good relationship with the finances. So what do you think, Indre, according to your experience? If you can introduce yourself, please do so. It'll be lovely.
Yeah, of course. Gosh, this topic is so wide. I don't even know where to poke it from. But so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Indre, and I'm a wealth coach. Now you hear the word wealth coach and you think, what on earth is that? So I've spent my career in finance, specifically private wealth management, and I've started a company that focuses on wealth coaching, which is effectively helping women take better care of their personal finance so that they can really strengthen their wealth legacy, so they can work towards that financial independence and really feel like they're in control of their finances and be confident about managing their own finances. So that's my focus. And to be honest, you know, when you said let's talk about femininity and wealth and health, my head was just exploding because I didn't even know where to start, because the role that femininity plays when it comes to wealth, when it comes to finance, is so huge in many different respects, and it depends what angle you look at it from. And you know, I started my business because I always felt that there aren't enough women who are investing their money, that there aren't enough women who are taking charge of even their own personal finance. And a lot of that is to do, you know, with mindset and how we actually think about wealth and money. And that comes through how we grew up, through, you know, the generational differences that Marla mentioned as well. Because if we look back a number of years ago, you know, women weren't even entitled to inherit wealth, let alone do anything else with it. You know, it was always the sons of the families that would inherit wealth. So there's a lot around that topic in terms when it comes to finance and wealth, and you know, the role of women and the role of femininity.
Yeah, we know. I think everybody experienced that, especially as a women. But basically, it looks like the women that they are, if they are too much not attached to the money, but they are focused on the money, making money, they are seen like no real women, but they are seen like more men, in the fact that we got less emotions. So how do you see this kind of bias to preconception to be broken up in the European? So you experience every day at your job with women's sort of psychology you're trying to break.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say that, because I think that there's this thing where we can never win, right? If we're really focused and if we're really ambitious and we really want to go for it and we really want to make a lot of money and we want to be wealthy, you know, we are effectively kind of told off for that. Oh, you're behaving like a...
Okay, we're back.
So, we're back. Let me start the last bit from the beginning. So I think when it comes to this kind of, you know, wanting to be successful, wanting to earn a lot of money, wanting to be wealthy, we are then being punished by society for it. We're sort of like, oh, you're trying too much, you're being, you know, I don't know how much of bad words I can use, but effectively you're being a selfish bitch, you know, you're this, you're that, etc. Then on the other side, if we say like, okay, you know what, I'm not going to go for wealth, I'm not going to go for money, I'm just going to be a regular person or stay-at-home mom or whatever, then we're basically being told like, oh, you have no ambition, you're lazy, you're this, you're that. So it's a little bit a no-win situation, because there's all of these perceptions that if we go for it, we're being in a way told off. If we're not going for it, we're also being told off. So it's really hard to find that balance in terms of, well, what it is that we should be doing for, you know, for everyone to be happy with what we're doing, you know. And I think it's a very different attitude towards men. If a man is, you know, being ambitious and trying to go for it, everybody's cheering him on rather than smirking at them going like, oh, what is he going to do now? And if he doesn't want to go for it, we're sort of encouraging them to, you know, take the time and do whatever it is that they feel doing, etc., etc. So I think there's definitely a bit of an imbalance there. And it's interesting also working with women, I see a lot of kind of interesting mindset points that quite often, but that might also be only the type of women I work with. So I don't speak for everyone and I don't want to generalize, but quite often I do see that sort of three elements, I would say. The lack of confidence. So thinking like, oh, this is not for me. I'm not really good, you know, at managing finance. I'm not a numbers person. Investing is not for me. I'm not going to be good at it. So there's this, you know, confidence that is lacking. Second thing is the fear. is the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing, the fear of what if I make the mistake and lose it all? What if it doesn't go according to plan? So the fear is also very much kind of there. And then the final is just sort of, well, wealth is not for me. I'm just not good with money. This is not for me. And a lot of that does stem from, many different aspects of our lives, from our childhood, from the social circles that we hang out with, perhaps from our spouses. And I work a lot with divorcees as well. And I see it quite often that, once they're going through the divorce, they have this kind of attitude towards money that I'm bad with finances. I'm not good with money. I just spend money. I don't know anything, about numbers. And a lot of that has been effectively repeated to them so many times that they started believing that, even though that's not necessarily always true. And quite often I find, I just need to give them a little bit of help in terms of working on their mindset and changing how they think, and the confidence shines through, the fear goes away, and they finally realize, oh, I can actually do it. It's not just for, gray head, gray suited old men with briefcases. It actually can be done by anyone and everyone. So there's many elements, I think, playing there in terms of mindset, psychology, and the prejudices that are there in the society. We are, moving towards getting rid of that. And there's a lot, that is being done towards helping women and increasing this gender equality, etc. But I think it's still a long way to go, because there still are those prejudices present.
Yeah, but also for Marla and Vanessa, they don't know about your previous position. You were working for hedge fund, correct? You were working for an hedge fund before you became a self-employed.
No, so I was working for a private wealth management company. So basically managing or giving advice to wealthy individuals about how to invest their money, the types of different investments, and basically managing their wealth. So I was working for one of the big investment banks.
Yeah, and that during the experience, so how did you find, for example, because you were basically looking after the wealth of your clients, did you see a sort of competition in terms of the fact that you were a woman, the way you were approaching your clients, and the relationship you built with your clients was different from how your male colleagues, they were going to conduct that? Or you can say that the way you managed to look after your clients was your way, and basically despite your feminine approach?
Well, where do I start on that one? I mean, it was hard. And being a woman in wealth management, it is hard, because you are dealing with, all of our clients. And this is what led me to start my business, because out of all of our clients, and we had about $1 billion of assets under management, 99.9% of our clients were male. And for me to get a client to sign on with me versus my colleague, it took probably 10 times more convincing, because, the fact that I was a woman, the fact that I was young as well, and you're dealing with people with very strong characters, because you're dealing with multimillionaires and billionaires who have built enormous businesses. So there was for sure a lot of those attitudes. Oh, what are you, little young girl, gonna tell me here that I don't already know? And you have to find a way to overcome that and to really prove yourself as an authority in front of those men. And it's really not easy. And I mean, now I don't work there anymore, so I can tell all the stories, but I've had even instances, to give you one example, we used to do a lot of client entertaining, going out for dinners and drinks and all of that. And there was an incident where it wouldn't always be just me, but I would take along some of my colleagues who were specialists in a certain area of investments, etc. And, for example, we were at a dinner with a client. It was all great and fantastic. We had a good time. And then after dinner, I was basically told to, get my stuff and go home and they, caught a cab for me, because now they were going to do their boy stuff and go to strip club and do this and do that. And I was no longer invited. And that's where some of the deals and that's where some of the things happen. And you are by definition excluded from that. So it was definitely hard. It was definitely tough, especially, we're talking about, men that are 50 plus and even older. So it's a whole different element. And I think, sometimes you could use your femininity to your advantage, but sometimes it definitely was something that was making it harder. So sometimes it was a friend, but many times it would be a foe big time, because it would really mean that you have to work a lot more and harder than your other colleagues to get the clients.
Yeah. So I know Vanessa in 10 minutes has to go. So Vanessa, if you have any question for Indre, please, I'll be lovely hear from you or on this topic, if it's anything you'd like to know more about her and her job.
Yes. I was thinking about your business, and I guess my first question is, when you onboard new clients, where do you start with them? How do you get them to navigate this world that scares them, that they don't feel confident enough for, and maybe there are some built-in or learned senses of defenselessness or inequality or inadequacy, really, about that? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so to be honest, the finance and the investing part is the last bit we talk about. First and foremost is really understanding what it is that they're trying to achieve. And that's what I always start with, is goals. Because quite often we feel almost like we must do this finance thing, we have to invest our money, we have to do this, I should open my eyes, I should do this, I should do that. But my first question is always, why? What are you doing it for? And to get them really, before worrying about how to do it and what to do, to think about what are your goals? What are you reaching for? Why are you doing all of this? Because once we really hone in down on our why and our goals and why we're trying to achieve what we are, everything else becomes a little bit simpler, and everything else starts falling into place, and the decisions become easier. So that's always the first step. And really, mindset is a big part of the work as well. It's really understanding how you think about money and why you think that way. What are the behaviors that you've already observed in yourself that perhaps have limited you from achieving certain things? And, I've come across some interesting examples of, women sort of having these aha moments where, if they think and dig deep, they come up with these limiting beliefs that they've had throughout that has prevented them from either making decisions, and they shied away from deciding to do something with their money, or they've gone into, a spiral of spending and spending and spending everything that they earn, etc. So the two elements to tackle first is always the mindset and the goals, to really understand where you're going, because what you want to know is your starting point and where are you traveling, so that you can really figure out the route. Because if you don't know what your destination is, you're gonna be, brushed from one side to another, not knowing how to really pick what you should be doing, what type of investments you should be going for. As an example, I can give you, let's say, if your goal is to, for example, go traveling for a year next year, you know that what you will be needing from your investments is to generate an income. Whereas if your goal is to perhaps buy a house in 5 years, you know that you actually need to grow that capital. So your type of investments you will go for are very different. So everything starts with understanding your why and where you're going. Hope that answers your question.
It does. I love that. I love that the actual portfolio building is the last part of the process. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Marla, you want to add something maybe?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what is the minimum wealth that a woman has before she needs or has to have before consulting with you? Is there a minimum, or are you saying at any level they should be consulting with you?
There is no minimum, to be honest, as long as I don't charge based on how much wealth you have. I have a fixed fee. If you're happy to pay that fee, I'm happy to talk to you. And I am a big believer that everybody should start doing something more with their money, whether you have 50 pounds or 500,000. In this, age where we have so many possibilities, you can start with as little as, 1 pound in reality. Fair enough, your earnings are not going to be, a lot. You're not going to turn that into £1 million overnight. But it's good to start, it's good to gain that exposure. It's good to gain that experience and, to get familiar with that world. And I think that's a misconception quite often that, well, not just women, but people have that, oh, I can't really do anything and invest unless I have hundreds of thousands. But that's really not the case. You can start with small amounts and build up as you go along. As your income increases, you can always increase that amount of money. So yeah, there is really no minimum. I'm one of those that encourages everyone to do it.
Yeah, no, I have a 21-year-old daughter who I keeps is possibly better at money than me, but it's one of the things that I say to her is, you need to sort out and look after whatever is left of your student loan, which she's very good at saving, but it is about learning how to use money. And I quite agree with you, is that women have really jaded views on what they are supposed to do with money. They think that, oh, this isn't right, it's too risky because it's a male thing. Investing is a male thing and it's too risky, and I just want to have a safe pot. And I think that comes from our upbringings and, our mothers. My mother had money all over the place, but she'd pull it out when we needed it, but it wasn't in growing, it wasn't multiplying. It was there for a rainy day, and that's what women were there for. And I found myself doing that as well. Rainy day money saved here, there, and everywhere. But it doesn't make sense because it's not growing. Whereas I think men are far more open to the growth of their money. I honestly believe that women should be looking at growing their money and trying to achieve their income from their investments, and whatever their earnings should be the icing on the cake.
That's the thing. Quite often we don't even see investing as an income. Investing is kind of like floating out there on its own. Whenever I mention passive income to people, they never put investing in that pot. They come up with all kinds of stuff, launching a digital product, affiliate marketing, this or that. And then I say, what about investing? Oh, is that income? Well, yeah. Is that passive income? Absolutely. And I agree with you. That's the only way to really, grow your wealth and to really kind of get to the next level and to ensure that financial independence for yourself and your family and your offspring.
Can I ask you a question, Indra? Do you think that that is what women should be attaining? I mean, it's my personal belief that women of all ages should be looking at being financially independent and secure. But what do you feel about that?
Absolutely, 1000%. I'm sorry about the funny lights. Absolutely, because we never know what's going to happen in life, and having that financial stress hanging over us really has a negative impact on so many other aspects of our lives. I think if we can feel confident in our finances, if we feel financially independent, we're less dependent on the men in our lives, the relationships become better. We don't have to be always terrified that something is going to happen and we're not going to have, enough food on the table. And there's so many other aspects that, are so important. I mean, I'm a huge believer that wealth is a good thing. Money is a good thing. It's what you do with it that matters. It's not, something bad by definition. It's what people do with it that makes it good or bad. And therefore having more means you have more options. You have ability to provide for yourself and your family. You have ability to look after yourself better. So 100%, everybody should have some sort of financial independence, married or not. Who knows what's going to happen, you know, with your husband. They may decide to leave you. They may die. They may become, you know, terminally ill, or life is just unexpected, and it can spring all kinds of stuff on us, you know, or even something like COVID. If you are secure, if you already had, you know, your investments generating income, and you lose your job, it doesn't cause you enormous stress. You can think about other opportunities that you can make of it. So I think financial independence is something we should all strive for, 100%.
Yeah. Just a quick one before Vanessa is leaving. In European, Indre, this is very interesting, the way how you talk about the fact that women, you listen to women. So what is the boundary between the role of, let's say, a psychologist and instead educational work that you do with your, your clients? I think that is the tricky one, isn't it?
It is. And look, I'm not a qualified coach. So a lot of people ask me, are you a coach? I'm not, because I'm not a life coach. I just called myself a wealth coach, but I'm effectively a wealth consultant. However, there is a lot of that empathy and psychology that comes with the job, and sort of navigating it and understanding, and then obviously the educational side of it as well. But it's a tricky and interesting combination of the two, because one depends on the other. As I said, you know, mindset is a massive thing, because, for example, I just finished working with one client, and she is very wealthy, and she has, you know, plenty of wealth, but she hasn't done anything with that for a number of years. And the interesting thought that, you know, one day came to her mind, we were having a call, and she said, I really don't understand why I can go out and spend 5,000 pounds on a handbag like that, but when I think about putting 5,000 to investments, I get terrified. What if I'm going to lose it all? I'm like, interesting, isn't it? And it's sort of kind of working with that and understanding where is that thinking coming from, and why, you know, why to buy something for that same amount of money seems like a no big deal and a decision done in split second, yet to invest that money with the possibility of getting more, but the fear of losing it all, even though it's not a significant amount for her, given her overall wealth, stops her from taking action. You know, with those sort of elements, you have to dig a little bit deeper. And, you know, with her, we spent a bit of time working out, where does that come from, that thinking? And, you know, we uncovered some teachings that her father has passed on to her, and the way her family lived in the past, et cetera, where that kind of overall fear of investing came from. But there's definitely an interesting element, how the two interact.
Yeah, of course, because she can see the handbag, she can't see the investment.
Exactly. So. Yeah, there is a bit of that, the tangibility, and that's why I think women tend to swing more towards property investments or other kind of tangible investments, because when you buy a property, it feels like, okay, I know it, I have it, I can touch it, I can see it. Whereas if I'm, you know, investing in the stock market or through a platform, well, I can't really see it as such, and it scares them for sure.
Interesting. Vanessa, is there anything you'd like to ask Indre or Marla before you leave us?
Not at this time. I do want to say I'm sorry I can't stay to hear your story, Marla. I was really looking forward to it, but I will catch the replay. Maybe there will be some questions from me in the comment section on YouTube. And thank you, Marianna, for having me. I wish I could stay longer. Unfortunately, duty calls. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Bye,
okay, no problem. I'll see you soon. Thank you for joining
Bye.
us. Bye, Vanessa. Bye. So, well, Indre, this is so interesting, because this is, again, back to our topic, talking about the fact that health, wealth, and strength whilst we got all of this inside of us, it's so hard to make it flourish sometimes. So that's why maybe femininity is sometimes not that friendly, in the sense that we block ourselves into this feminine box, thinking that there are some areas we are not good at, like managing the money, or basically making sure that we're independent, or trying to work toward that, because that is coming back, as you said, the lack of confidence. So Marla, what is your experience with the relationship with the money in that sense? Because you invest your money in someone else's life because it's your job, because in that way you make, you can build your business. But what is your relationship with money in this sense? So you are
very mixed, very mixed.
Very mixed.
I, everything that Indra is saying, I relate to. There are so many biases that I grew up with. There's so many things that I grew up with that said, oh, don't invest your money in stocks and shares. Stocks and shares are so risky. You will lose everything. You don't know what to do. You have no idea what you're doing. So yes, I grew up with that. On the other hand, I also grew up in a family that took huge risks on businesses. So it's a very mixed bag. My relationship now is, I am by nature a bit of a risk taker. So I would, we invest in businesses, I invest in gut instincts, but more than that, the older I've got, the more I believe that I need an easier passive income. That is the important thing. I love what I do. Okay, I love the business, I love the risk, but we still need the security of knowing that I can take that risk, I can enjoy what I'm doing, but at the back of it, everything else that I need to cover in life is covered by a passive income. So for me, that is become far more important the older I've got. But it's got far more important with the more educated about money I've got. There is a big thing. In our schools, we teach them all kinds of things they'll never use again. But we're not teaching especially our young girls, anything about how to deal with their finances. So we're not teaching them how to be in the real world to get ready for a future. And there is, it's far less now, but my future was supposed to be being married at 18 to a nice rich man who'd look after me for the rest of my life. I obviously just defaulted on that plan, but that was what my future should have been, and I shouldn't have worried my pretty little head about it. So even buying insurance for me was a big deal, because I never had to deal with it, and I had to learn that. But there are so many girls who think I'm so clever, and I think I'm not clever. You're just as clever as me. I'm not clever. I just had a different thought process. You did what was expected of you, and that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But it isn't that I'm clever. It's just I have a different education, and I've seen the world from a different viewpoint. And for women who haven't had that viewpoint, it's really, really difficult to suddenly switch the conversation to saying, oh, I can do this. It's a big deal, because all their lives they've been told, don't worry your pretty little heads. Your job is to do this, that, and the other. You cook, you clean, you have our children, you look after the children. And, if they're boys, they stop they don't have to listen to you either. But your girls have to be perfectly young, a perfect young woman. Now that's the world I grew up in. That's not everybody else's world. That's my world. Okay. And for that, women are not to be blamed so much as they've got to learn that they do have control, and they're not idiots. They really are just as intelligent as some of the most idiotic. I mean, that's the thing. We say that it's a male thing, but you see such idiotic men investing and doing it so badly, and yet they think they're superstars. And then you see these sensible, clever women who are running their households, bringing up families, doing everything that is so hard for a man to do, while some of them are still holding external jobs. And I'm not saying that there aren't, this is true of all men. So let me just be very clear. I'm not being sexist. I'm talking about those women who do these things and still believe that they're incapable of doing something that benefits them personally. Because, you know, I'm just not clever enough for that. And that really irritates me. That really makes me a little cross that, you know, we are at that stage in life, you know, in the world where that should not be the case anymore. We're not living in the 1950s, but some of our even young girls are stuck with that mindset that's been inherited through generations.
True, absolutely true. Independence. So as Indra was saying before, especially what has impacted us last year, it was something unexpected, and you need to be nowadays more prepared for the unexpected. And maybe we were prepared for a war, but we were not expected to fight with a virus. So keeping us in our houses, and unfortunately there are so many problems within the domestic walls, and couples splitting up and thinking that nothing could have happened to us, and basically even the women that lost jobs and they need to rely on their husbands or partners, and basically what they do, they are entrapped in their relationship because they don't see any other choice, because they don't have another choice in this right moment. So I agree with Indra. Education is so important about finances and supporting women to make a little progress in terms of approach with and relationship with the finances, and starting thinking that we need to be independent. Independent means so many things. As Indra said before, is the fact that you can look after yourself better. You can look after, you are much more happier, you are freer, because when you are independent, you can care more about the others. When you are entrapped by the finances, you are a slave of yourself. You are entrapping yourself in relationships, in the bad relationships. And this is the way how to free yourself out. So I totally support, I like what Indra is doing and the way she does. I don't know, Marla, if you follow her on Instagram. If not, please do.
Yeah,
so.
no, I do. I do. And actually, I agree with you about the independence. And I would put it a different way. I think it's called freedom. And for me, financial freedom is really totally summed up by actually a Tony Robbins quote, which is, he says success, but I say financial freedom is the ability to do what you want, when you want, where you want, and with whoever you want. And that is, I think, the goal. And that for me sums it up, is the freedom to be able to do that. And if we take that, if we don't have financial freedom, we don't have any of those choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No,
true.
exactly. I agree. That's what I say. Money is choices.
Yeah. So let's be freer. Let's free up ourselves, because we deserve that. We deserve to be able to express ourselves, in the sense that, as Marla was saying, to be able to do whatever you want to do, how you want to do, and the people you want to do, wherever you want to do it. This is literally luxury. It doesn't matter how much is on your bank account, but even the little that is allowing you to have all this is fantastic. This is a dream, but can be achieved as long as we are able to free up the mind first of all, in my opinion. Okay, ladies, I don't know if there is anything you'd like to add to close the conversation. So just a quick one from Indra. So what is in your opinion, I would say, magical formula as a woman in your business then?
In what sense? As a woman in the business?
For the fact that you are a woman, so what is adding to your job? What is making this magical?
Ooh, that's a tough question. No, I think the one thing that what makes maybe my job easy for me as a woman is the fact that I probably approach it from a more emotional point of view and empathetic point of view. And I think when it comes to finance, we should never forget our emotions and empathy, whereas I think quite often in the finance world, it gets very much forgotten. And I think when we're working with other people, you know, it's not just about providing solutions and plans and packages and difficult information. It's about really taking the time to understand and to see their point of view and to understand what's important for them and what drives them. And I think once you get that, then you can really help them make a difference, because that's the foundation that everything lies on.
Thank you. For you, Marla, what is your magical thing?
Well, you know, I find that very interesting, because I think I didn't actually introduce myself. So what I do is I'm a founder of Marla Investments and co-founder of MGG Capital Partners. And I'm an entrepreneur and investor and a business acquisition specialist. And so I've bought and sold a few businesses in the last 15 years. And one of the things that I know is that businesses only attain like 70% of their asking price when they sell it. And owners are kind of really disillusioned and frustrated by the process. And they are really usually disappointed by the price they're achieving. So I work with business owners to change the way they think of a business being sold and make their needs and their emotional value integral and crucial to the selling process. And this is so they can leave a legacy as well as maximizing their return. People really discount the fact that the emotional value of a business is what matters to an owner. So a bit like your wealth, it is the fact that they put their blood, sweat, and tears into building a business, and it disappears. In the process, nobody treats them as people. And what I like to do is not look at the businesses, look at the business owners. Because the problem is that when a business owner comes to sell, it's like a bereavement. It's like letting go of a child. And most M&A experts will come in and look at the financial value of the business and totally discount how the owners feel. And so I feel that as a business woman, and I emphasize that as a businesswoman in the M&A space, it is a really highly disregarded area, because people will talk about, you know, building a rapport with the owner, but they are building a rapport with the owner with an end goal. And they're not starting with the end goal where the owner is a winner or feels like a winner. They're not looking at the end goal where this legacy that owners have built needs to be retained. I mean, for me, legacy is really important, because like I said, I've sold a few businesses, and the businesses I've sold where I've watched them rip apart everything I've built, I can't even walk past them. You know, it is really hard to do that. And for someone who's spent 60, 50, 60, whatever years building up their business, that's difficult. So I think emotional value should be at the forefront of everything. That how a person, what a person wants, how they want to get there has to be important. And you can get there. You can get there and both be winners. You've just got to listen. You've got to really listen, not just hear, but you've got to listen. I don't know whether you agree with that, Indra.
Absolutely, 100%, yeah.
Okay, Marla, thank you very much. That is amazing, because it's something we are talking about, the tangibles, and this is an intangible, but is so full of value and worth. So definitely is important to find out someone that is appreciating the emotional value of a business, and then to believe in it and to invest in it. That's great, really. It's not for everybody. So if there is anything you want to add, because otherwise we are here just to wrap up. And if there is anything you would like to add, please do. No?
Marianna, thank you for making this happen. That's all I will say. It's been a really good conversation, and I think it's a conversation we just can carry on with. I think it's a very important question about how we look at ourselves. I don't honestly believe that my femininity is a foe. I feel that a lot of times that it's underestimate me at your peril, and it's good that if they underestimate me, because it allows me to sit back, watch and listen without being under pressure. So yeah, mainly a friend, but it can be, and when it's a foe, I think you need to use that for your own benefit.
Yeah, thank you, Marla, for this. No, I really thank you all. Pity the other three ladies couldn't join us, because also there was something from their industry would be interesting to bring into this conversation. But for sure we are able to, if you are happy to do so, we can arrange another time, and maybe with a group of 3, maximum 4, it can work, because we can dedicate within the hour more time. Otherwise it's going to be less manageable. Otherwise not everybody can have the time to express what I'd like to say. So it has been great for me, great experience. I know each of you, but and I knew how slimlessly we could have had a chat about femininity, being still professional and showing the way how we approach interesting topics that are for sure of relevance for everybody's watching us. So thank you everybody, and thank you from WoW Lexifiscal, and I will keep everybody updated for the next meetings, and conversation open to all of you. Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.